Let me start. So today's presentation is an update of my research. So I've been working on it for a bit now, and this is where it's at the moment. Having taken your comments during my last presentation, which is a bit over a year ago, and the discussions on the way. So improve that. Don't use determinism, it's old-fashioned, so I got that out, and so forth and so on. So this is where I'm at. It's not perfect. Please help me to improve it, close the little gaps and holes, and see where it ends. I can remember us sitting, I think at Clea, the three of us, and then Marta says he's put numbers before every statement of the theory, which was a bit of a surprise. And also he wants to go back to the original question or the elementary laws or something. And then you warn me for it, Francis, to say that don't go into particle physics to explain why you have hired a sales consultant. It's a sort of a reductionist path. What I was looking for is the metaphysics, but I didn't know at the time what I was looking for. I need some explanation that is different from the object-oriented way of traditional thinking. And it came to the fore, I remember, when I was thinking about complex individuals, so like a meme, what I call a memeplex. So it's a complex of memes. How do they evolve to the next stage? They're all kind of individuals in the old traditional way, but they evolve as one. And I had struck upon some concept of an individuality, so it's a combined individual. It didn't work. It was like it was not nice. Then you advised me, Marta, to read some thesis, one of which was Weaver's thesis, and that influenced me quite a bit. And I read Lumen, which also influenced me quite a bit, but now it's a bit more of Deleuze and Simondon, and not so much of Lumen. He's there, but not as much as it may be. So this presentation is about metaphysics, which was not there at all in the beginning. Then the theory development. Then I tried to come up with a laboratory. I'll explain in a bit. So it is actually for human organizations, organizations that are associated with people, or that have people associated with them. And then I put the data in it, so to speak, as if it were, I'm not going to use the C word, not that one, as if it's neutral. And it can run such that it becomes a firm. There are all sorts of human organizations, but you can put software so that it can work as a firm. And so those are the big steps. We all know what a firm looks like. It's this, it's a building, and there are probably people inside, machines inside, trucks driving around, and the smoke from the chimney. I've made this joke before, so I'm not going to linger much longer on it. In theory, it's like this. If I were to design a firm theory, which is what I hope to be doing, this is the definition. So it's an economic theory explaining and predicting, which is same thing more or less, the nature of the firm. It's substance more or less, including existence, behavior, structure, and relationship to the market. There are two funny things there, because economics is the behavior of people where supply and demand meet. That presupposes already a lot of things. So I'm not so fond of the economic theory. And the relationship in the market is the same thing. Market is not a God-given thing. It's not a metaphysical thing. It's a result of something else. But anyway, this is what I have to work with for the moment. There is, the most famous one is the transaction cost theory, which more or less explains that a firm exists to lower transaction costs as related to a free market. So people trade stuff. If more information is required, then you're going to need an organization to solve that. Then there's creative destruction, which is Schumpeter theory of economic change, which requires that one firm falls over for another one to come in to renew knowledge in that way. Institutionalism is a brand of it. It explains sort of the growth of institutions. he manages to be 3 minutes late, and I sort of promised to start over again. But I think you're not missing very much yet. It's about firm theory. This is the sort of description of firm theories and really a definition. And I had just explained that economics is where supply and demand meet. So it's the behavior of people around, a market, and it is again here a market, which is not doesn't explain everything right away, which requires more explanation. To be fair. So transaction cost theory, theory of economics, institutionalism, and evolutionary economics, but that is really biology as a guiding principle, not as the. So it's the existing theories, but now in a different light. It's not really a fundamental theory of, well, as I'm trying to make now, to be honest. So this is what I know of. And so a small critique, there are half a library full of critiques on traditional, so classical, neoclassical economic theory, of which firm theory is a sort of marginalized part. There's not so much to choose from. The first one or the second one, economics is science of the behavior of people, presupposes a market. Why? And then if you listen to Adam Smith, he says it's in the nature of people to trade. And so and you start with people. Why is it people? And so you don't get at the heart of the matter. There's a natural role for firms, anthropocentrism, the trading nature of people, as I said, markets. And then further problematic assumption is people as rational agents. They're not rational at all. They know that, but then you get a full theory, very mathematical as well, with corrections on them that you don't like. So it's kind of essentialist, objects of traditional theory with corrections for deviations from the theory, in practical sense. Efficient markets, the same thing. So information spreads instantly over the market. All the participants have the same thing. So why does something have to be destructed to arrive at change? Is there no other way to do that? Is that your starting point, like it is in Schumpeter's case? And that's the point to go, the way to go. And this is an important one as well. It's very strange in economics. You have to use equilibria to arrive at some explanation, for your mathematical model, to arrive at so you need equilibria for mathematical reasons, and then afterwards they explain that it has to be for economic reasons. So the highest, so where marginal cost and marginal revenue meet, as just an example, you have to take a derivative. And your derivative is where there's an equilibrium. So you need, from a mathematical perspective, you need an equilibrium. And then afterwards you explain.
Go to zero.
That's it.
To find a solution.
That happens all over the place. It's very strange. And then there is all sorts of workarounds and explanations to patch up this problem, because there's no automatic reason why there should be an equilibrium in such a complex system. A problem is that many of those theories and partial theories are byproducts of neoclassical economic theory, which is very influential. It's a bulwark by itself, so it's a big fortress. It's very difficult to penetrate. So I told you about guys that Nelson and Winter, they made a theory based on Schumpeter's philosophy of creative destruction, and it's a big book. I think 400 pages, 300 of which are a critique on the neoclassical theory.
Unfortunately, there are many more critiques than alternatives.
There are none. Yeah, so but it's time that there was one, because the firms that we have now are a result of what we believe, and one of the reasons that we believe that is because our economists, they are products of this theory. So they believe this, and as long as they do, the guys at the management schools, MBA schools, and the economics institutions, and the CEOs, and they all believe that it works like this. So it has worked. It brought a lot of good as well, because all the things in computers and buildings, this is very good. But it's overstretched, I guess, at this point. So That's my personal opinion. What is invariably there in firms, that's what I'm actually looking for, is to characterize them. The question is, so what's invariably there in the universe of differences? So if not two snowflakes are the same, not two grains of sand are the same, then it's very vanishingly small chance that two things are actually the same, whereas the traditional metaphysics is about that. So all that happens in economics is about change and non-equilibrium instead of the other way around. It has to go to an equilibrium. Yeah, this is sort of a joke, or not a joke. It's like it's not about stuff, as it says on top, products, finance, machines. So only people are there. And then I found this quote of Rodin, who says, if you have an ID, then it's already done. Your statue is there. To get it from the rough stone to a sculpture, or to have it in bronze, it's work. So it's, to get is how to do it. But the real ID is leading you to the realization of it. So you can take away all the assets and the hardware and stuff. It's about the IDs. So that's what point I'm trying to make here. The conception and development of IDs, and so they are the basis for people to be motivated. So they are put in motion as motivation means, right? And there's lots of them. So variations is big. So as I said just before you arrived, what I wish to do is to explain the nature of the firm, and it's more metaphysical than when I started a year and something ago in the discussion which you started. Then design a theory of a human organization in a more general sense as a laboratory. Again, not this as a kind of a computer, so that I can put the firm theory, kind of data, kind of software on it. From the belief in progress, our market capitalism, whatever you call it, to find out what kind of firms we have. And I am very interested in their association with the people associated with them in that relation, how it works. And I want to be, so it comes from metaphysics, but it has to be really practical. So in the end, you must be able to predict behavior of a firm and the people in it. So, this is what I took from that. If everything is a difference, the coherence comes from repetition in series, and they produce, de facto infinite structures and forms. And this potential is immanent in the configuration of those, whatever it is that individual it repeats. And that is, in Deleuzian terms, its ID, which is virtual. It's what it could do, its capacity to, and it can be a process or a system or some configuration of something, objects, relations. But what it actually does is restricted by its current state and its environment as well. And now cognition occurs in a metaphysical sense where virtual and actual meet become. That's the real. Not a big surprise, I guess, for you guys. And not for you. I don't know. You read PhD, yeah. Sort of. So if we take processes instead of objects, you arrive at individuation. This is a formative process. I'm going to speed a little bit through this because I think you know more or less. So it's whenever there's a structure, this determines the operations and therefore the behavior of this multitude, heterogeneous multitude you're looking at, and conversely, whatever it operates determines again its structure. it's two sort of goes hand in hand. Structure, and they've called it an assemblage because it's not really a system. It's a section, I think, of all the possible things you could look at. So you just choose a subset. And then the next thing is that if in your subset things are starting to become coherent a little bit because of this process, then the neighbors, whatever is adjacent to it, they find that there's more and more coherence on the other side of whatever it is. There's not really a boundary, but somewhere is something is more denser or contour of something is emerging. And so the neighbors' operations become oriented as well. And the assemblage integrates hand in hand with the elements in its milieu. So they all sort of start to, because there is more coherence and now there's more coherence as well. And so new combinations can form with the series in mind, we just discussed. And it starts to, so now the behavior of one assemblage that you're looking at is translated back to it via its neighbors. Because now its neighbors start to behave as coherent in a certain way. And so it is aware of, maybe even, so it's individuating based on that. So it's self-individuation of assemblage in their milieu. And conversely, the milieu is also doing that. Okay, there's randomness injected from the environment generated by assemblages when the structure is not simple. So the complexity of them and of their environment can increase. Doesn't have to, it can. And now they can individuate up to the point of becoming a parent but not a child.
What does it mean?
You can have a molecule that is almost a cell, but it cannot have children. And then there's one that can, and he has a child. And that's the first autopoietic individual. This can go on up to the point that it is a parent. And once it's a child, it is autopoietic. That's all. Okay, so still in metaphysics, here's a bit of a loop between this and a few slides later on, because now cognition is possible. So it's a dynamic meeting point between what is known and what's not known yet, order, non-order. So in Portuguese there is this word for finding things out, how they really are. And they say it's levar o cabo. It's like if you're fishing and the cable, fishing line goes in the water, you lift it up like this. And that visualize a little bit what's happening here. Because now there's this system or group of stuff that is kind of cohering in an environment and going from state to state. And that is what cognition is. And while it is cognizing, it's organizing itself as well. Yeah. It's prior to being autopoietic. So it is not autonomous yet. It's leading there. Going there. Sorry, this is too full. But the thing is, there are a few. The essence here is a density of coherence. So it is, clotting up here and there with a contour, beginning of a sense. Is it becoming aware? You can't say that it's cognitive, really. I would say, but okay. I'll get to that later. It makes sense with the behavior of its milieu. I think that's the buzzword, but I'll get to that also. We've been through that also. So cognition is based on the establishment of this difference. It does not happen in spite of it. So the difference between something that is distinguishing itself from its environment, not in spite of this difference, because of it. As it gets more different from the environment, it is more cognitive. It's a bit superfluous. And it is distributed. Because operational closure, now a heterogeneous group is starting to behave. They're all individuals. They are in assemblage. Now they are cohering, or starting to show coherent behavior. And there is some sort of a boundary-ish early stages forming around it. And then it's operationally starting to go, it's going towards operational closure. And then cognition is produced in the network of iterative processes without a center. So it's not around an essential thing, it is not moving towards something. So the whole block is moving towards the next level. And cognition has
I like that I need to explain why it is necessarily contributed, because indeed it's a closure, it means it's some kind of a, as I called it in my recent mail, a circulation. And a circulation doesn't have a beginning point or an end point,
yes.
So it has to be everywhere in the circulation.
Exactly.
The cognition is distributed over all these processes.
Yeah, yeah. Is that the mail about COT?
No, I called it circulating challenges. It was a kind of a new way of visualizing this kind of process.
Yeah. But does it match with this more or less, or is it?
Yeah. It's perfectly compatible with it.
But I would, because
except that I used circulation as a generalization of closure, in the sense that circulation is closed in some respects, open in other respects, and there is no clear boundary yet.
Yeah.
And that's something you need, for example, to explain ecosystems or consciousness, where there is something with an identity, but the identity is constantly changing and is very open.
Yeah.
Or for living things, there the boundary is more clear. For social systems, I think it's also more circulation. With the firm, there is again a more clear boundary. So the degree to which there is a boundary, the degree of closure, that is a variable that is usually not very well understood. Because it's not that either there is closure or there is no closure, there are all these intermediate cases. So I kind of close in some respects, but open in other respects.
Yeah. I had high hopes of the COT, and I've seen that you sent an email, but I haven't read it yet. Not very well.
Well, COT describes nicely the process of achieving closure. That means that in COT you can see the process where you go from no closure to closure. But the problem is once you are in the closure, the COT you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Unless some external perturbations are injected into the system, then you can again destroy the closure.
I'm interested in that. We need to. Okay, so once it has become a child, so the first child is autopoietic. You see, because now it's assemblage. Now it can reproduce itself, so it has now the possibility to. It has the operations to reproduce itself.
Well, autopoiesis does not imply reproduction. It implies self-production, and in the view of Maturana and Varela, self-reproduction is kind of a special application of self-production. But you also have living systems that just continue producing themselves without reproducing themselves. And that's one of the things you typically need for social systems, because social systems typically do not make copies of themselves.
Yeah, so there's a different. That's a good point. That's a great point. Yeah. It's a different way of not making copies, but making new instances of themselves. Like that?
Not necessarily new instances, but making more of yourself. I think in biology there is too much focus on reproduction, on making copies of yourself, which is something which is good to describe typical animal-like organisms, but some organisms that are more plant-like, they just grow, and maybe from time to time some part of that growth gets separated, it becomes a new plant, but it's not necessarily that you need to make copies of yourself. You can just grow yourself and become more of yourself.
They also change.
Well, change in the autopoietic sense, not. I mean, I think about things like plants that grow via shoots, via a rhizome, and they split, and they cover larger and larger pieces. Mm-hmm. And sometimes such a plant can become like 10 meters or 20 meters in diameter. And if somebody would cut a ditch in the middle, it would become two plants.
Okay, but with social systems, the social system also changes. It's never remains the same.
But the question is, what changes if it changes in terms of Maturana and Varela speak about, I think they call it structure and organization. The structure is what changes, the organization is what remains the same. So in COT, you might say what changes is the concentration of the different molecules. What remains is the fact that all the molecules in the organization are produced again. But the growth in this case would mean that you have more and more of these molecules. The relative proportions change and go up and down, but all of the molecules in the sets are produced again. So it's still the same set of molecules.
Yeah, but sometimes it happens also that one molecule disappears or changes. Well,
And that is then the person that I know they start calling circulation as then the weaker form of, which is not autopoiesis, which is not closure, but I call professionally circulation.
but I think it's often the case in social systems. It's more
Precisely,
like
yeah. In social systems, that's why I think for social systems, for cognitive systems and for ecosystems, you don't have that autopoiesis, you don't have that closure. But I think that the firm, I think you're trying to define something which has a boundary, at least in the economic sense that the firm has a boundary. You're either employed by the firm or you're employed by a rival firm.
Okay, so that is because I'll get to that. So let's see what happens. I've said that it's a ratchet because once it jumps into that and it becomes autopoietic, that is the argument. That's my argument. It will not go back. It will not give up its autonomy.
Yeah. It's an irreversible process in the thermodynamics sense. Not that it is 100% irreversible, but there is a clear preference to go in this direction. It's very difficult to get back.
That's one. So that the assemblage is autopoietic, design condition, I've called it to the individuation process. It keeps on, it's still an individuating system, but there's an additional condition. Reproduce itself includes the faculties to reproduce itself. And that is your comment, I've duly noted it, so I'll get back to that. Now it's operationally closed, every part of the system contributes to the maintenance of its autopoiesis. And now the parts that were in the assemblage relatively free but confined by their, conditioned by their environment, they're now elements of a self-organized sense-making cognitive system. So they're stuck together. Sort of. Assemblage was bounded, environment becomes distinct from it. So at that point, it distinguishes itself and it is distinguished from the others. So now it's really becoming cognitive in a stronger sense. So the organization is a set of those parts that determine it as an autopoietic system of a particular class. That is the definition of Maturana and Varela. It's an autopoietic system of a particular class.
Because it's not obvious that this would produce things that are of the same class.
I found it.
Each autopoietic system, according to this dynamic, might be completely different. Not in the same class.
I've understood it to be of a particular class, that it is an animal or it is a plant.
If you look, if you include reproduction in the autopoietic cycle, then the self becomes not the organism but the population or the gene, right? Mm-hmm. In that sense, you have the class as an organism, mm-hmm. as the autopoietic unit.
In the biological sense, the class is typically the species. You reproduce, meaning that you create a copy that's maybe not identical, but that is recognizable in the same species. That has some of the same gene that belongs to the same population. But in firms, I don't see why you would.
I'll get to that. I've made a proposal. So let's see. I think I would say that in biological systems, it's a genome. The genome is what typifies you, makes you recognizable as a human being or as a other organism. For now, it's okay. And the structure realized as a particular system. So there is some frills around it that are not, I think, absolutely required for it to exist. If the structure is damaged, that it can handle that. If the organization, in an autopoietic sense, is damaged, it cannot handle that. It's forced outside of it. I'll get to all that, so let's not linger too much, but this it really requires to remain, to be maintained as a unity, keep its identity, and to remain autopoietic in that sense. This is not, this cannot be damaged, the organization, the structure can. So it's the manifestation as a particular system, an individual of that particular class. So if this is human, then the structure determines which human you are. If you're Francis or Marta.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying way in the end to explain a firm, so I have to identify when it's a firm and when it's this particular. I'll get to that in a long time. Okay.
I think you see where you're getting. You want to mean that the class is the class of firms, or are the firms of specific subclasses of firms?
Yeah, I'll get to that. You're stealing my thunder. As they say, autopoiesis cannot be work in progress. There's no way back. But individuation. Some functional issues. Maintaining is autonomous every operation. I think it's a bit of a double. I like this one, but it's too early days really. Because you place drift. Let's skip this one. It's too much detail. Right. We've spoken a little bit about cognitive systems or cognition, and I was very fond of computation, as you know. You're not so fond of it because you say, first of all, you need a hard drive, some other hardware stuff, and then you're always with these Turing problems because. But there is something to be said for. So it can be argued that it is an alternative to cognition. So it is more or less the same thing. Why? Let me try and give you the arguments. Cellular automata can emulate every other process. It's theoretical because in practical terms it's not so easy.
Wolfram says, but there's a difference between the theory and the practice.
Yeah, but he goes a long way. Okay. So he says, cellular automata processes in nature, like firms, that's my emphasis, are fundamentally the same, not a mere representation. So it's not a modeling tool, but you're touching reality with the cellular automata. That's the point. If so, then systems are units of computation and computing their next state at every click. I can live with that. And complexity in their environment increases to an equal level of sophistication. And that is, assuming that this is true, that they can do this because they're the very simplest forms and already capable of a huge level of complexity and sophistication.
I think you should distinguish between what's called a dynamical system and a computational system. A cellular automata is a kind of computational system, which is a kind of dynamic system.
Okay.
But the dynamic system has, let's say, the nice properties of this, but it's more flexible. The dynamic system, for example, does not need to have discrete clicks, does not need to have a discrete state space, does not even need to be deterministic. Most dynamic systems are deterministic, but what you really want is that one state goes to the next state, goes to the next state, goes to the next state. That's what you want to have state.
Yeah,
and the click is this transition from state to state.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
So you don't need computation for that. Computation is one very specific instantiation of that, but you can have lots of other implementation of the same idea. That's the concept of dynamic system.
Okay, but let's park it. But I like this point for later use, so I'll get back to that. It's not usually important, but it's a little bit important. Cognition, I've underlined. I had the computation there, and cognition I've not underlined because I've discussed it just now with autopoiesis and thing. So I jump to thinking, and this is from Weaver's thesis, and it says that thought and cognition, is a very broad sense presented here, are almost synonymous and interchangeable. So that is his point. Without giving you the, so thought extends far beyond the conventionally considered mental activity, and cognition does not involve specific sensory faculties, interaction and effect. So over and so my point is with these slides, and I'm going to jump onto this one. So these systems are a configuration of whatever it is, and they go from state to state, and they're still doing their operations with that and organizing themselves in that. And Weaver has states or defends the point that you can say that they think the idea is immanent in their organization, and the idea is in a delusion. It's from Deleuze. This one. So they think. Now I have some difficulty, like with computation. I have this difficulty with people think. You know, animals hardly think, but for me it's very much associated with people.
Well, it's a question of terminology. I mean,
Yeah.
Weaver likes that terminology. Like you, I also think that let's stick closer to the intuitive meaning of thought, which is related to people, and call the other thing something else.
Something like that. But my whole objective is with the computer, with these slides, is to find out which one is the bit more suitable. So we have left making sense. I like making sense because there is
I also like the sense making.
Sense making. Yeah, because
much like that concept.
It has a broad domain, because you can start at individuation already. So you're not stuck with like a kind of metaphysical cognition, and then there's autopoietic cognition, which seem to belong to each other. And sense making can go all the way, and it's not so intense from the start. It can be a kind of an awareness of something and then reacting to that in a careful way. But you've written an article about it, you guys. Yeah, making sense is equivalent to making reality, which is the definition, also metaphysical definition of cognition, self-referential and other referential.
I like to see making sense as situating yourself within a network of all the processes that affect you. Situating yourself within a network of processes that affect you. Both by seeing what has caused this, what is there at the moment, what is it likely to lead to, what do I perceive of it, how should I act in it, what are the things I should strive for. These are the dimensions of the worldview. Also, according to Apostle, you can actually make it nicely to six dimensions, but all of them are putting yourself in connection, location in this network of processes. So the individuation is from the moment you become an individual, you want to see how, as an individual, you fit into this larger whole, and that I think is the sense making. Seeing how you fit into this larger whole.
I agree. So it has a wider application. So that's what. Okay, cognition can do the job as well. Computation, I agree with you that it is not, but there's some elements that I like. And so, okay, they have their moment. They're enjoying themselves. Why are they so worried with Russia? You know, can you imagine that? Why is it so important? It's a small country, small economy.
In economic terms, it's small. Yes.
It's smaller than Holland.
In geographic terms, it's
But not in the Delusion sense.
It's as big as the Benelux islands. The economy is as big as the Benelux.
It's 600 billion, and Holland is 800, I think. So it's a small economy. It's very cash driven. That's the good.
I read that it was comparable to the Benelux.
Still small.
Anyway, it's small.
5%
much smaller than France or England or Germany or Japan.
But here you are taking the perspective, the economical perspective.
That's
you
true.
are taking the
I can't help
idea of like derived from the economics.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And if you take ideas in general, not the economic one, the ideas, they're like history, like whatever,
Traditional
delusion
enemy.
delusions,
Mhm.
are huge.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Russia has much more influence if you go outside of the economic. For example, in terms of weapons, in terms of natural resources, in terms of simple size of the country, size of the population. In all these respects, it is a big country. In terms of economics, it's not.
So it depends on how you look at it. Well, the picture here is that they still like each other a whole lot, for whatever reason. You can also say Donald Trump has bad friends all over the world in real estate, and he must have a few in Russia as well. So,
Well, he's even becoming a friend with Kim Jong-un.
yeah, it's getting worse.
He chooses his friends.
Yeah. Okay, so Dawkins says it's a unit of a meme, cultural transmission, similar to gene, tool for thought, according to Dennett. And now I've, as a sort of a, tried to contrast that, which is not possible, with Deleuze, who says that they're never overt, they're really virtual. Hiding within their manifestations, so their expressions of an ID. So it is what the system that the ID, so the ID is what it could do, and the system expresses that by its operations, and it shows in its behavior. So their manifestation, their structure can only be inferred from their manifestations. These remain universal, and there is an infinite way. There are infinite ways, a variety of ways to express this one ID, let alone all the combination.
The only problem I have with it is that it sounds very platonic, as if the IDs are really the true essences and all the manifestations are just these distorted shadows.
Yeah, I can take your point. Yeah.
But I'm not going to deny, of course, the importance of IDs. Just that I think both the IDs and the manifestations are important.
The ID, as he means it, is that is all the possible directions, or it's the potential for expression of a configuration. In that sense, it might be somewhat different from an ID as you just intended it. Because now it's everything that's possible given the configuration of the system. I call it the system. So
derived from the cognition of that system. So it's not like topological only possible. Like if you think like physically about all the combinations, then indeed like you have to make an abstract class of all the combinations, and it becomes platonic. But if you think about this virtual, virtual state of ideas as they are like in a second order cybernetics, as they are available to the cognition and sense making, to whatever is there. So it's kind of a product of that situation.
But, I have a problem with that because it's actually the very classical way of reasoning in science. Even in the Newtonian framework, you have the state space, and the state space is the space of all possible configurations of the system. It's actually called configuration space originally, then it's turned into phase space because they also added momentum. I prefer the name state space, but it's a space of all possible combinations. But that space does not exist objectively. It's a model we make because we think of certain variables, and we think if we make all possible combinations of all values of all these variables, then we have the state space. And so the idea that the state space already exists separately from us, it's, let's say, my constructivist philosophy objects to that.
Yeah.
And it's reality always says things that you don't know, while this kind of implies that there is already this state space, and I don't. Kaufman used a concept that has become kind of popular a bit, the adjacent possible. And the adjacent possible is, well, let me do it. Let's make a very simple state space. You have 2 dimensions, and it's discrete, so each of these you have different values, let's say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so now you start putting dots, and these are your states. And you say, I'm here. And then the state space is all the possible combinations you can think of, but the adjacent possible is, let's say, these that are in the neighborhood. So if I make one step, I'm here. If I make one step, I'm here. And one step, I'm here. But the moment I'm here, my adjacent possible changes, because now suddenly I can go to there. And what Kaufman means is that the theoretical idea that there is this infinite state space that already exists is nice mathematically and nice conceptually, but in practice, you only know really what's there the moment you have made that jump. Mm-hmm. Because by going from this state to this space, this thing now suddenly becomes unvisible. Yeah. Immediately going there, that only works in theory. Yeah. In practice, it's like with a firm. Mm-hmm. You don't change the firm into something completely different. You make one step at a time, and the moment you make that step, all kind of things change, and then suddenly you start to see, but now that we install this new procedure, we would be better at performing these kind of processes, and if we do this kind of process, we might produce this kind of product, and this kind of product might achieve us to reach this kind of market. And it's with each step that the adjacent possible becomes visible and that you start seeing the new possibilities. While the idea of the state space, or the idea of the virtuality, is that all these possibilities are already there.
Yeah, I have not understood it in that way. But now that you mention it, they're never over, so they are not visible, but they are beneath their manifestations. My perception was that they are only by their manifestations, which doesn't say anything about their existence prior to them being manifested. So only when they are manifested are they there. Do you know that they're there? So it's not said that they are already there, but by their expression, now you know they're there. That's the way that I read it, because I agree. Because it's not like that. Because otherwise everything would be known, unavoidable. I mean, if everything was known, knowable.
Yeah. The Newtonian framework is your infinite state space is there, and you can already calculate exactly how you will go to that state space,
I don't believe
and
that.
you already know everything
that
could ever possibly happen.
So,
well, to me, each step you make changes, in a sense, the state space, because new things become possible that weren't possible before.
No, I agree with that, and I've understood it to be like that. If it's not, but I'm going to check that. It's a good point. But so my next step, my next argument would have been that a meme is a subset of the IDs, because every system has its ID. That leads to where it is. You can only know it by the expression. In the same holds true for memes. So it's in a cultural sense. So they are the cultural subset of IDs. And that would be the link between this metaphysics and memes. I'm not sure if we need memes so much, but I like them. I'm very used to them. and they're not very well defined. Also,
I think the memetics deserves much further application, and I mean, lots of people are critical about it for all the wrong reasons.
yeah.
Because it's popular term, and anything that's popular is automatically considered to be unscientific,
Yeah, yeah.
etc. But
My children use it a lot. They have a meme, this, and even about other children. That he has a meme that he can sing very well or something. So it's the
nowadays the term meme has a little bit gone
Yeah,
too
it's
far
okay,
from its original meaning, but
yeah, but it's
but I saw that my paper on meme selection criteria has again gone up in my citation rate, and now it's my third most cited paper, just a small paper in obscure proceedings, but apparently everybody's citing it.
yeah, it's interesting. But well, okay. So that was my attempt in doing it. I'm going to check that if it's the case, I'm kind of comfortable that there is a link between them. Yeah, they are self-replicators, cultural experiments. I like this just so thing. The Rudyard Kipling, all the wrong explanations for something, which is then the ID that people follow. They give expression to that ID, which then turns out to be completely wrong. There are millions of those examples in business innovations, completely gone wrong. It's just so kind of exercise, like in management, fad and hypes in strategy development and all that.
Yeah.
But if memes are ideas, they are static and without causal power, and they can only come to life or to reality, to be fair, in what is actual. So that is their circumstance and their current state.
It depends what you call causal power. I mean, if a cause needs to be something material, yes, but I think that's something, an ID can be a cause. You do something because you have an ID, and you got that ID because you got it from somebody else.
I think the idea here is that it's passive. So it's you who feel attracted to this ID, and also attracted to in combination with a motivating, to be motivated by it. So you're moved or motivated by this ID. But the ID there is just floating around.
Yeah, but that's comparable to a virus. A virus cannot self-replicate. A virus needs to infect some host to have the host replicate it. But I don't think many people would say that viruses don't have causal powers.
Yeah, it's okay. I used it. I used this formulation, but okay. It's Weaver's fault.
No, I mean, I might even make a comparison. If I push on the button, I have a causal power on the light. I switch on the light, but you can say, but you can't switch on the light. It's the electricity that's there, and without those electrical wires and the source of electricity and a power plant far, you can't do anything. Still, most people would call that the causal power.
You can argue because the causal power is if the light goes out.
I make the whole electricity infrastructure do something by just one bit of choice of pushing or not pushing.
Yeah, but
you can say, yeah, but all the work is done by the electrical power generators and so on.
Yeah, okay, so in this little universe of this classroom, the relation has to be if and only if. So if that goes out, it can only happen if and only if you push that button.
No, it can also go out because, for example, the power plant stops functioning, or there is a blackout, or there is a bad contact in the wall.
Yeah, okay, but that's out. Okay, I agree. It depends on how people make the universe. But in principle, that is the definition of causal power.
There's a nice theory of in psychology what's called causal attribution. And if something happens, people typically want to see what's the cause. Like, He fell off the staircase. What was the cause? And then you can say it's because the staircase was steep. It's because there was gravity. It's because that person had weight. You can say yes, without gravity he wouldn't have fallen. If the staircase would have been horizontal, he wouldn't have fallen. If he didn't have weight, he wouldn't have fallen. But typically people will choose the one thing that's different from the usual. So normally staircases are steep, normally there is gravitation, normally people have weight, so they will exclude it as goal.
Yeah.
But if, for example, the person stepped on a toy that was on the staircase, and he will say, he fell because of the toy, because the toy was not supposed to be there. All the other things, they're standard, and that's why all these wires in the wall, they need to be there, but I assume that they're always there, they're normal. It's my pushing or not pushing that's the abnormal factor. And that's why we attribute causality to one thing that is not always there. And in the case of the meme, I would say there is causal power to the meme precisely because if the meme was not there, things would have happened very differently.
But in general, does the concept of causality in this relationship fit into the theorizing you are doing? Like, will you be using causality and causal relations?
No.
So
No, I don't.
Then you can simply avoid the
I
problem.
can. Yeah.
It's like with the determinism.
Yeah.
Don't open a can of worms if you don't need to.
No, I'm not using it. So let's leave it at that. So the point is clear. I think this. I'd like to note the similarity of the concept of IDs. If we accept it, if it's acceptable, if we assume this ID, this concept of IDs, then it would be the same as a domain of interactions of an autopoietic system. It's a repertoire of behaviors, which is also its potential for interaction. That is how I read the Deleuze.
Maybe for Deleuze, yes. Yeah. Well, for memes, it's definitely not. Well, a meme is a potential interaction.
Yeah.
But the domain of potential interaction is so large that we have again the problem of that state space that's infinite. And it doesn't make sense to say, well, it's there anyway, if at the moment you can only reach this adjacent possible of the things that are obviously doable at this moment.
Yeah. Okay. There's stuff to discuss. Let's move on. Oh, okay, this goes on a little bit about the plane of consistencies where all these ideas are that have been expressed at some time. So that's the way that I've read it. There's no relationship hierarchy among them. And they're consistent because they're interconnected, but not by relations of contradiction or negation. Yeah, so, and it's not...
Why are they necessarily not contradictory? They are contradictory. Well,
that is the
they are contradictory means, but maybe not the Deleuzian ideas.
Yeah, so ideas can envelop other ideas or be enveloped by them, so they nest and be nested, and they can be configured from existing or emerge into the universe, into the world, and they're infinite. So they're not a precondition. Not everything, not every idea is existent, but not visible. That's the point that we just discussed. They emerge as they are expressed. As long as they're not expressed, they're not there. That's what it is, how you can read this. Let's leave it at that.
The problem is if we start with consistency of all the ideas, then memetics wouldn't fit, because in memetics you typically have memes that compete. The IS meme and the meme of liberal democracy are very inconsistent. They both exist.
Not if they are not assigned a value yet. If they don't have a meaning and they're just flat ideas. It's just the idea of ISIS, and it's the idea of democracy, and they're not competing yet. If they're in your mind, and I'll get back to that extensively, not to say ad nauseam later on, but as soon as they're in your mind, in your mindset, then you say, well, you know, there is certain advantages to democracy. But in somebody else's head, it may be completely logical, and in our opinion, completely wrong. You might say it's a different idea. ISIS is a better idea.
No, but I understand that you have this space of potentiality or virtuality where you have lots of different ideas, but why they should be consistent? There are lots of potential ideas that are inconsistent.
Because now,
if you choose the one, you cannot choose the other one. If I believe that the world is flat, I cannot at the same time believe that it is a sphere.
It has to be like this because everything is different. No two things in the universe are the same. So if you allow it to, so that is the starting point.
Yeah, interconnection, I understand, but consistency in the logical sense of not contradicting each other, I don't see why that is necessary.
How I have understood it is now, if it's only affirmative, you accept that they're all different. There's only difference, and now you can put every now you can put every operation on it, and that might not be the case because then they're mutually exclusive, and then you can find operations that they do not match. Again, I'm not sure how important it is. But,
Well, it's something I think I've told you in different forms already. It's good to have a metaphysics in the sense of some kind of ontology, but don't use elements of metaphysics that you don't need because it just limits your freedom.
yeah.
So it's not because the Lou says this or Luhmann has said that, or I don't know, or Heiligen has said this, that you have to stick to that.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah. I didn't realize this but I must think about it, and so to see how it is relevant, firstly, and how it is because what they've tried to do is make an internally consistent story. In fact, that's a metaphysics.
Well, that's what the metaphysics is.
Yeah, it's no more than that.
Yeah,
But now, if I start to deviate from it,
that you are building a theory of the firm.
yeah.
So at most, your metaphysics is that you make certain assumptions that are different, let's say, from the ordinary ones, but you don't need to specify the whole complicated system of assumptions
Maybe
if it's not relevant. That will lead you too far, it will restrict your freedom of developing your theory. It's just the same as with the determinism.
Yeah.
Determinism is a whole kind of worm where some people have whole theories that are consistent with determinism and others that are inconsistent with determinism. If you don't need determinism as an assumption, then don't mention those theories.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, I agree. Okay. I will. I think the last one on this subject is the adjunct, what Deleuze calls adjunct fields. When I draw a contour as an associated network, influence how the actualization of the ID takes place. So it's one ID and all the IDs connect to it. So I had likened this to a memeplex. It's a complex of memes. So that was my first question. If an ID was a meme,
Sure, that's what the means. I think that the idea of a memeplex or a complex of memes or IDs is important. And a complex of memes, like all systems, is a set of components that somehow fit together, that have stable relationships. And these are typically, for me, the relationships of consistency. Consistency in the stronger sense of coherence, that the one supports the other.
Uh-huh.
And that's also why you need inconsistency, because otherwise everything would form one huge memeplex, which it obviously doesn't, because memes are competing.
Mm-hmm.
The IS memeplex competes with the liberal democracy memeplex, competes with the fundamentalist Christian memeplex.
Yeah, but I agree with that.
Within these memeplexes, the ideas are consistent, but towards each other they are not.
No, but to jump ahead a little bit, what I try to do is to say these ideas or memes are neutral in themselves. So there is a meme of swimming, it's the idea of swimming, which you may or may not like. I grew up at the sea, so for me it's associated with what I like. Somebody who grew up above the Arctic Circle, for him is a certain death, so he's not going to like it. So the association is different. And now a meme for swimming can have two opposite meanings, but the way that I had it in mind when I made this presentation is that it only comes to mean something in that if it touches, that meme touches my brain, so I'm confronted. I encounter a situation where I'm asked to swim. I like it because it's blue under the sea, and the person from North Norway, he's not going to do it because it's a different life experience, so to speak. It has developed differently, and that is another way how memes can come to conflict because they're compared.
Mm-hmm.
So the memes float around in a memeplex, and your mind is a landscape. And I have this picture in a few slides, and they are offered each other, so to speak, and they either are attracted or they're not attracted, depending on the life experience, as in social citizen programming.
Yeah, it's like an ecosystem. A particular species ends up in a particular ecosystem, and either it fits or it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So a penguin fits in the Antarctic environment, but would die very quickly in a tropical forest or in the Sahara.
Yeah.
The same with memes.
Yeah.
So their relation of contradicting each other, which sounds like qualities of memes, is an outcome of the cognitive processing of comparing and putting them together and seeing that they don't fit into the same container of your assumptions.
Yeah.
So when you have the flat globe, Earth, and the globe, you have them competing because you assume it's impossible for it to be simultaneously the case, right? So because you derive this conclusion of impossibility, of contradiction, by the act of thinking or cognizing of sense making, but what you put and how you make those, what you select as a background to make the comparison, something like that. So cognitive activity makes something possible to come together or impossible to come together.
That's the sense making. The sense making is fitting yourself into a particular view of what the world around you is. And you have already a view from all your previous experience. That means you have already a lot of memes or a lot of ideas. And then when a new meme comes, it fits or it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Maybe at first sight it doesn't fit, but then when you think about it, you start to see that actually it makes sense, that can happen.
Yeah.
So it's not that there is this very simple, I'm simplifying when I say that it's either contradictory or not contradictory. In most cases it's kind of much less obvious, and maybe the guy from Norway after a while will learn to appreciate swimming, and maybe you will drown and you will suddenly get off swimming. But that process of it's what Piaget called assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation is you manage to fit your meme pretty without changes into your cognitive system. Accommodation is you need to make some changes into your cognitive system to assimilate a new meme.
Yeah.
But in both cases, in the end, you get back to a coherent system.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the point. That's a very important point. This is extremely difficult. I'll get back to that. I'm just hammering on a little bit. But if memes are a subset of IDs, then adjunct fields could be an explanation for a memeplex. I'll look into that again. I see that you doubt.
I don't know the adjunct fields IDs of the words enough to be able to say so, but what you write there, I don't think you need it.
I might not need it.
It's pretty similar to what you say. What
Yeah.
adjacent places?
Adjacent places.
Yeah, but adjacent places are places that are reachable. It doesn't mean that you want to reach them. You might come to the adjacent place and say, no, I don't want to go there.
Yeah. I've taken note of it, and I'm going to look into it, and surely we are going to either skip it or discuss it again.
It's interesting because you put a lot of concepts, and that's like the previous version, like of your writing was the same, like with this. Do you need to have those assumptions you made? We'll be discussing, but interestingly, like you may need maybe 1/10 of like the concepts you're putting in to build like strong theory. And if you put more, you are not making it stronger. It's the opposite. Because like each gluing point is a place where you can just push, and it will fall apart. So.
Okay.
So like make it,
the more pieces are hanging together, the easier it is for somebody to pull on this one and to push on that one, and the whole thing starts unraveling.
Okay.
If it's a few that are nicely, strongly connected, then it will make much more impression than if there are so many entries and exits.
Your contribution is that connection. So you you connect 3 concepts, but beautifully, and you will make a big contribution. If you put together 20, it's just a thesis. So that's the game. Right?
Yeah. The thing is that I'm in a way I've tried to make more connections because I think it's stronger. I thought it could be stronger.
Well, it's worth exploring these connections. That's how the thinking process goes. You confront yourself with lots of different ideas, you try to connect them, and sometimes you will find a very strong connection and say, yeah, that's what I need. But in other cases, you could make some kind of a connection, but it doesn't really help you forward, and you're better to drop it and just keep it somewhere in the back of your mind, and maybe in 6 months you will revisit it and say, now I see where it fits. But
otherwise
you don't have to keep all these connections in mind.
Good. Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Speaking of these comparative relations between memes, I've presented this before because I recognize this thing. And these are just a few examples. There are many more. So it's the kind of evangelical missionary thing. So that incites the host to go out and convince others of this thing. What the thing is not so important. So if it's again about, you didn't agree so much with my sports analogy, so the swimming and the walking again. So a dog can do that as well. So I have to redesign something else, but mathematics, I can tell my children that mathematics is very important. And I'm a bit missionary about it. Although I'm not very good at this, as Ivo knows. Versative, that could be, in an operational sense, a link with the discussion we just had about the contradiction. So
that's a strong selective force in memes. That sometimes memes kind of exclude each other, and then choosing for the one automatically means that you drop everything that has to do with the other one, like Beatles versus Stones, or Islam versus Christianity,
and that can be on different levels, and so you can lose whole clusters with one cutting.
But hold on a little bit with that swimming. I remember our discussion about swimming. What I didn't like was the context where you were discussing it. You said you've been kind of describing memes as something unique to humans.
Yeah.
And in that context, I told you that,
No, I know.
that a dog has the same idea,
Which
probably.
is, yeah,
you
it
know,
likes to swim.
likes to
so-
swim, you know,
and-
enjoys to like it's good to swim, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
why
yeah.
not, you know, like so. But I like the question mark, like why I just remembered, you know, like do you have to make it unique human, you know, in the first place? Memes.
I think in this case there is a pretty good case. I mean, there have been studies like bird songs as memes that are imitated, but yeah.
Dolphins, they can have some.
But I don't think you also needed to get to enter into this.
No.
Exactly,
No.
because it was where our discussion about swimming started. But you know, like if you don't use this, you know, like uniqueness of humanity and you know,
Yeah,
like,
could either lose that.
as a you know like environment for your discussion, then you
Mhm.
can you know like
Do what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's either that, or switch to more human activities like cooking and reading.
But then again, it loses the linkage with ideas. I would say, you know, like because in the metaphysics where everything thinks, you know, it's not just the ideas are not human only, you know, entities, right? So,
yeah, that's correct. That is correct. So I must choose to if I want to stay with the memes, but considering the fact that I'm in the end ending up with ferns, I may have to select. Because people are always involved, so it has to do something with people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
you can start describing it at a level of abstraction where you describe the self-organization of an autopoietic system on the basis of some abstract ideas, and then say, let's now apply this specifically to humans and specifically to human ideas, and then we see that this autopoietic system may take the shape of a firm.
Yeah.
So you start from a more general approach where you don't say more than you need, and then you add a number of assumptions that you do need. Step by step, you make it more concrete until you come to your particular case. I think that's the best order.
I think so, yeah. Okay, it's only what I've of this small list. There are many more, of course. The motivational one is the one that gets a meme enacted. Get a job. So it's, you know, that's one of the relations that can get a meme to affect the environment physically. And what I am going to look into and haven't done is if it can work in the COT system. Because this is typically kind of a sorting mechanism that I think COT would be suitable or could be.
Yes, but that's why I like this kind of notation, which I usually call condition action rules, and which in COT is called a reaction, where you say if then, and a meme is a kind of an if then. In these conditions, this follows.
That's what it follows, exactly. And
if something is the earth, then it is flat. If something is God, then it is omnipotent.
Yeah.
You can always put it in this kind of if then form, and the if part is the conditional distinction that you start with, and the then part is the conditional distinction that follows from it. And if you interpret it as a process, you can make a COT model of it.
I think I want that.
And it is something that is so general that it can be used at this metaphysical level.
What I keep stuck with the COT is that you have these reaction equations. It's kind of a reaction equation, and you need some property, some proportion. So you.
There are, as I explained in my paper, there are two levels: the qualitative level and the quantitative level. And you don't need a quantitative level in this case. The qualitative level on its own, you can already do a lot with it. And it's pretty simple, the qualitative level.
Yeah.
The quantitative level then gets more complicated.
The
The quantitative level might also be useful if you would say how often does a particular meme get instantiated in a particular firm at a particular moment.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to.
No, I'm not going to go there.
So
It's
you
just
only need to say these are the memes that together form this kind of organization because the one reinforces the other.
So you mean with quantitative level, you only do to semi-organizations?
Yeah.
Because not all semi-organizations are organizations.
But even so, the separate of the organizations, you only need to show that there is one flux vector that can do it, but you don't have to actually calculate the flux vector. So you don't need to know the actual fluxes or concentrations. You just show that one is possible. So if you have reactions where the one consumes much more than the other one produces, then you know that you won't get an organization.
I'm going to I've skipped a few slides. What I think is important is the research that you've been doing on social system programming. Is that people can the mind of people is kind of built up, or its makeup is an effect of its life experience, which is for a large part a social experience. And so we've discussed memes and memeplex, so what is happening outside, I would say. And then as an effect or as a consequence of the social systems programming, the mind of people has a certain, and I envision it often as a kind of a Brownian landscape. So it's like this, it's like that, or is actually familiarized with something, less familiarized with other things, in a positive way or in a negative sense. And that allows a person, when he or she encounters some idea or meme, either is attracted to it or not attracted at all, either attracted to democracy or to ISIS, based on what happened so far. So that is what I wanted to say about this slide. Okay, just to IO rules. So based on this, the IO rules, the same is in fact for the. Yeah, so motivate people to act in this way in that circumstance.
Exactly, that's what
Okay. What let's not go too deep because systemic autopoiesis. Why I like him, why I would really like to involve his ideas is that he's adamant about the autopoiesis of communication or social systems and of human mind. And at where they meet, human mind and these systems, that I think is where human organization occurs, where it takes place, where reality is created. And so I would say the party gets better with Luhmann involved, with the ideas of Luhmann involved, not his writing. It's cumbersome.
Nothing gets better with his writing.
His ideas, some of his ideas, I think are really good. Just very briefly, three systems: social systems and the mind. Those two are the ones that are really important in this context. They each exist in the environment of the other. Systems can be enveloped, others between them is a kind of a membrane. Okay. Reality is developed in this way, systemic autopoiesis. So what happens between systems mind and communication, and how does the position of the observer affect this? Because he's written a lot about it as well. Okay, so communication is the double contingency. You're aware of it, I think. So if somebody says something and somebody else understands it in some way, both contingent, because the one that expresses an idea or a meme, maybe his expression is not so good, and then somebody understands it, but maybe his cognition is not so good. So doubly contingent if the message is coming across. Once it's sort of, yeah, gotcha, then it's a unit of communication. So double contingent is solved, communication is established, and then it's on its own. Because now there is this, something is designated as I say it, you understand it, and it's a camera. Now we know from now on it's a camera. Can be about anything. Utterances, I like that word, it's a funny English word. Utterances, designs, anything you can express once. Right? Okay, so this is the thing that I find important. I've called it a job at the time. I don't know why. It's like a little bit of software running on so it's like a landscape of IDs. So people's decisions are guided by what they've come to believe to be true. That is their starting point in their mind. Their will is limited to what they believe to be true. So, yeah. So the mind is da da da. And the job is a thought in an individual's mind guided by a meaning. It's an encounter of the mind in the social system.
Yeah, okay.
It's something
Humanian sense, yeah.
is a Lumanian sense. Yeah.
And by a mean, you mean a communication or a rule of the social system?
Yeah, it's this ID. So it's an expression of, guided by the expression of a meaning, should say, to be honest. But it's a tool for thought.
Why do you need the distinction between that meme and that job? What is the difference between them?
I
The
think
meme
the job,
and the job.
It's half joking. It's like the event, So your mind is fixed in this way. It's put in a certain context of what's happening.
Which triggers a certain process in your mind that follows the rules of the social system.
Exactly. And it's that event. It takes a little bit of processing. So it's associative. So it in your mind there's a whole thing lighting up. Okay, this is connected. And then all you do is say I recognize it and this is useful, but this is not useful. This is not useful. And so it's often recognition. It's a lazy kind of recognition kind of thing.
It's what I call challenges. Challenge is something that stimulates you to do something.
Yeah.
But usually there is more than one challenge, and you need to select the one that's most important at the moment.
Yeah, that's it. I've pictured it like this. So this is a social system. This is a mind, and it's sort of see how it attracts. These are random pictures. But the thing is that, as Luma describes it, he says these two irritate each other. So what happens in the social system irritates the mind and changes it. So it reinforces particular items and that can be in a positive way. So do more of that, or in a negative way, stay away from this. Okay. It's all physiological.
I know this terminology that conceptualist thinkers like Maturana and Luhmann, they use kind of negative sounding terms for saying that something stimulates, like it irritates or it perturbs.
Yeah.
But that's why I like the term challenge, because challenge can have both this negative and this positive connotation.
I agree.
Kind of.
I agree. Irritate. I think
Stimulate sounds to
stimulant.
positive, irritate sounds to negative, but
Yeah.
challenge is a little bit.
in Dutch it would be prickle.
Yeah,
I think.
prickle. Yeah,
Prickle
prickle
is-
is also a good one. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
good one.
I agree. So
Actually, that's where the word stigmagy comes from, because the interpretation by what's his name, the guy who invented the stigmagy,
in French.
was Grasset.
Yeah.
The stigma he interpreted in French as piqûre,
Yeah.
prickle.
It's,
And in English, the best translation is a goat or a spur. That's what you do if you're sitting on a horse
yeah.
and you give them
Goad
kind
it.
of a push, so to
Yeah, but it's all it hurts a little bit.
it hurts a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. I agree. So irritation is a bit of a okay. So there's call it an interaction. There is something happening between the two. So either they're attracted or rebelled, and in the process they change one another. So cognition occurs through attraction or repulsion of expressions of memes at the intersection of minds and communication. So this intersection takes some effort, and the effort is, I had called a job, I'm going to get rid of it because it complicates things. That was the idea. Now, I really want to know what's happening there, and I've taken it on me to put it in a sort of a formalism. Ivo, if you want to go to the loo, this is the time. Let's discuss it with Ivo.
I already discussed it with him.
Yeah. So if that's the case, so if these two are there, you know, social system and a mind, and they are, you know, they're influencing, affecting one another, then you want to know, after one click, to the next state of the mind of a person, B apostrophe, and G is the communication. The letters are not very representative. This is for gedrag. This I forgot why it's a B.
Not for behavior.
Not for behavior. So G to G. Yeah. So that's what you would like to know. Okay. So they're affecting each other and how? What's happening now? And so the M is the expression of an ID. So it's not a meme. The meme is virtual. It cannot be its expression, which depends on an ID or some sort of a core plus its connotation, which is these proselytic, you know, all these relations between them.
Connotation or context?
A connotation. It's an associative relation. Now, I've defined two operators. One is the epsilon, which is the expression. So there is this ID in your mind, and you express it as best you can. Person P does that. And B is make sense of the expression of others and of self, because you're talking to, well, you're not maybe talking to yourself, but you're interacting with yourself. So this makes sense, is the sense, it makes sense of things, it's the beta, makes sense of the expressions of others and self.
What are I and J?
Oh, so many IDs floating around, and with all the relations between them.
No, but the small I and the small J.
Yeah, this.
Yeah.
More than one ID, so it can be a meplex.
Mm-hmm.
And with any amount of relations between them, between the elements of it.
It's kind of a subset of IDs.
Yeah, because I mean, usually in mathematics, when you use such an index, it means that it's one from a long series, which
Yeah.
is not really quite what you want to express.
I thought it was a set with relations between them. That was the idea. So it's more like a scatter with the relations between them. This is the IDs themselves. This is the relations between them.
Plural here.
Plural.
Mm-hmm.
So I IDs and J relations. Yeah, that's
I'm not sure you need to subscript.
okay. It's a draft. Okay. Now, what I've tried to do is to say that people see the behavior of the people. So let's say there's a discussion. Yeah. So we discuss. We sit in like we're here, and we discuss between ourselves, and then everybody thinks what he or she is thinking, and people are expressing what they do. So that is the concrete physical environment, and I've tried to make a relation between the two. Now, yeah, the bubble, you know, is the entire space of all the thoughts of the people as they exist in the mind of each. So each has his or her thoughts, and I'm making my behavior. I express what I believe that is thought, what I think in relation with the other thoughts, because these thoughts only live in the midst of other thoughts. So I express based on my thoughts compared to yours. That's what it is trying to say. So these are all the different thoughts that everybody has. Now, how can I know your thoughts? I can only observe you and see how you act here. So it's like a second order observation. It's the only way for me to have an idea of your thoughts and and my own. So I've tried to formalize that I express myself based on where the discussion is going, or what the thoughts are in our group. Hear me out. Conversely, we are all doing that. So we are all contributing in our expressions, what we say and write, and it's put on a kind of a heap, and I'm trying to make sense of that. So how I see you behave, and what I hear from you, and conversely what you hear from me, is an operator to make sense of it. So what now happens is that expressions that you cognize, so to speak, and you process them into something understandable to yourself, and conversely you express based on your that understanding. So at each step in our meeting, there is either the expression of it or it's the understanding of it. And so it goes up and down, or kind of a circular way. And which looks like this. So it's behavior, and then it's the understanding of that behavior, and then it's the thoughts, and its expression based on those thoughts, and so forth and so on. From G to G, accent, etc. There's an L here, it shouldn't be there, but anyway. So this is a kind of the idea is a kind of a loop to present it like that. So the personal state of mind changed from P to P accent, and communication states change from G to G accent.
Mm-hmm. It sounds a little bit like what I call the circulating challenges, but now where we have two entities, the communications and the minds.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be nice to have more conversation like that, because a conversation would be indeed kind of a circulation of challenges, but where there is constant change.
Yeah.
So some ideas will return in the conversation, but others, new ones enter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like this word proscriptive. You know that so if there's a fitness to it, it can be denotative. So it's a hard number. If it falls below it, it goes. It can be proscriptive is if it doesn't work at all, it falls off. And I can see a conversation going like that a little bit. So it's more or less open, discuss a little bit, and sometimes there's an argument that I have no clue what this is about, and it disappears a little bit. So it floats up and up a little bit, like that. Like I think it's called natural drift. It drifts a little bit like that. So it develops. No.
I don't see what the proscriptive has to do with it. To proscribe something means to forbid it.
It is not to include only what works, so your fitness norm, but it's to exclude everything that really doesn't work. So it's only the final
there
fitness.
will be, which is similar in the brain also, that the neuron needs a certain level of activation before it will fire. If it doesn't get enough activation, the person stops there.
Yeah.
So you may float some idea in the group, and then nobody picks it up because they really don't see the point.
Yeah.
The idea just disappears from the
But
conversation.
it allows for a flexible way or a dynamical way of self-organizing. Because it keeps the communication keeps going because it's lenient. It's not every time I'm not 100% sure what you mean. I cut it off and I stop. The communication stops.
Yeah.
But as long as I get your drift, popular English, it's okay. We can move on, and I can ask for more explanations and maybe some detail, or I write it down for a later moment, and it continues like that. But it's a sideline. I agree. So what I wanted to do is get it circular, and so that's my attempt at formalism in picture. Same thing. Yeah. Now
What do you mean here by observed system and not a system?
you can take the point of you can take the point of view of the social system, and then the prickle comes from the mind, or you can take the point of view from the mind and then the
Oh yeah, no, you mean the observed system is the one on which you focus,
Yeah,
either the
yeah,
social
yeah, yeah.
one or the
Yeah.
mind one. Okay.
and you can of course even take the meme's eye view. So take what a meme can do. So I was sort of hoping to, in fact, what I was hoping to do, of course, is to describe what a meme does. It's virtual. So what this formalism now is everything that it's not. It's only its expressions that it's about. So the meme is somewhere hidden below this thing. Okay, so yeah, I was with the Lumen. He's keeping me not awake but busy because he does not use that. He doesn't know his metaphysics is different. It's not with virtual or IDs or memes, and it appears that structure and operations are the same. So if the structure changes, its operations change, but that is a one-on-one. There's no. Like not the potentiality in a kind of a context. Yeah, he uses context, of course, as a system and a distinction, but in a different way. And so I was thinking, but now it's really speculative, that if these operators are two sides of the same coin, then the operators are not an expression and making sense, but an oscillation between two systems. So whenever it's expressed, then it is understood on the other side. That was the whole theory forming kind of thing. Now, this is to establish the laboratory. We have 10 minutes to do that. I'm going to skip to that. Here's the theory again.
What do you mean by laboratory?
Theory. So say that by I haven't put it. It's a little bit on this page. This one. So it's the theory as it is. And that should be our computer of human organization. And now we should throw something at it, some software that leads it to produce the firms that we have. And that is this. Let me see what's this. Yeah, okay, so use this theory as a laboratory by entering the software for emulating a firm. So that has been my approach, to first establish a general structure and then let something to it, because I don't think it's sufficiently distinctive firm as such from a charity foundation as a human form of organization. It's charged differently.
And for you, the difference comes from a specific selection of memes?
Yeah. It's different behavior. So I
And
need
not,
something.
and not, for example, a specific interlay, like operational mode, how those memes are enacted or something.
Yeah.
Too.
Okay. Yeah. So it's that plus the what I call connotations. I'm not sure that it's an operational thing. How they are connected to one another.
But how they connect, it can be also seen as a meme of like connector meme. Like how you operate is also an idea. No?
Yeah, so it's I've called them connotations, but the thing is, if it's not a meme itself, it's just linking the one to the other. Yeah, I agree. Some of which are a meme to actually do something. So swimming plus this meme do something is go swimming. Something along these lines.
I think it would be good if you could find some kind of an example example. We have been looking for that a little bit. You remember for the SSP1, I was looking for some kind of an example of an autopoietic style type of rules, calling up other rules. I could maybe send you my examples. They were not very well developed yet, but maybe in the context of firms you could have something like this, like A leads to B and B leads to C and C leads to D and D leads again to A. And
Yeah, that's
something in that style where you can see that it is autopoietic, that the one type of communication calls up the same kind of communication but via a number of intermediate steps.
I believe that these, what I've called connotations, but these kind of linking memes, you could call it, you don't need so many of those, I think. There can be many, but it doesn't not necessary. And then the memes themselves, so because it's kind of like a little bit of a sorting mechanism. And whatever gets sorted, these memes, they are, and I'm convinced of that, just so. It's not very, there's not much fitness. It has to be really damaging the organization.
Well, yeah, that's
otherwise anything goes.
Yeah, that's the whole point of autopoiesis or self-production in the sense of CRT, is that you have reactions and after a while they reach closure, and the closure doesn't really care about what happens in the outside world. So
Exactly.
the closure is kind of self-perpetuating, and it may turn out that you have something that's actually very fragile, and that if some serious perturbation happens, the whole thing just falls apart. And that was one thing I tried to do in my paper on COT with Shima and Thomas, was to formulate a condition of resilience, where the resilience is that if you have lots of different perturbations, some organizations will survive it, others will not. And with Eva, we have been trying to play with some examples of generating organizations like that, and we found some that were resilient and others that were not. But especially if they are not, then you get into a kind of a bubble in the sense of a number of stories that just reinforce each other and that have no really fitness to the outside environment.
Exactly.
There is a danger.
Well, danger. I think it's like an outboard engine. It makes a lot of noise. It's and fumes and waves and I don't know what. And but it consumes petrol, which is toxic stuff. By the way, you can drive your boat with it as well. Mm-hmm. But its rendement is very low. It's like 20% or 30%. So it's a stupid thing to drive your boat with. And the same goes for organizations.
Yeah.
I have always had the impression that firms, most of the time, they're just keeping themselves busy and they're not doing anything productive.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
But the same is,
if we could somehow stop that process happening, all the problems in the world would be solved, because suddenly we would have 5 times more capacity to address them. Because 80% of the capacity is wasted in just keeping the system perpetuating itself.
It looks like that's the role of people on Earth to do that work, to find out what now in fact is the way to organize yourselves. And it's stupid, and the same goes for government organizations.
I think this is an extremely important research topic which has practically not addressed at all. I think we are the only ones probably that have really addressed it.
From this angle, I'm quite sure that it is. So it's interesting.
But for that, you need some kind of semi-formal model like COT that could potentially be translated to an empirical observation. If you could find some way of observing certain types of memes, and then you would be like an ethnographer that goes and participates in a firm and writes notes down what you see, then it could potentially become something that people really would take seriously. If it's just philosophical ideas, it will not have an impact. If it has a formal model, it will already have more impact, but if it would also be supported by empirical observation, then people might really start saying, they have a point.
And here Dirk is very good. In his writing, the way he uses examples, perfect. Like a lot of examples. We were always lacking examples. And
that's exactly what I would like him to do.
he does. Yeah.
But his theory should be sufficiently
Yeah.
clear to fit the examples,
Exactly.
and now he has a tendency with his theory to go a little bit too much in all directions.
And it
at
will be
once.
stronger when it's like coherent, when it's like when people can understand it. And when you illustrate it, and you illustrate very nicely.
Okay. No,
I
I
see
can.
it's the same as with your mathematical model. Like in the beginning, you also had like thousands of formulas for a lot of things, which were like going in all directions.
And because it's,
more condensed
very
it into
unique.
like just.
And even the choice of your letters, it's not, the simplest one. The one that you take B and G and those
Yeah,
subscripts and everything, and
Yeah,
just
no,
to
it's
make
terrible.
it more,
Yeah,
funny.
it's very organic. So it grew to be like this, what it is, and now I'm a little bit used to
Why
it.
don't you work the opposite way instead of starting from the metaphysics and working towards the concrete things? Start from the concrete examples you are and try to abstract towards the metaphysics
You'll
and not
see.
add more than you need.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You will see which concepts you will need and which linkages.
That's but it's time. We need a beer. But if you allow me, I have some examples. So,
Okay, I would
good.
like to see them. Because I'm looking for examples, because I'm the theoretician here, I lack the concrete experience that you have, so...
Okay, so capitalism. I've presented this before, so you know it, and I like this. That capitalism is now all over the world, more or less. So it's not even a Western cultural thing anymore because everybody believes in that. But then it's also in our Dutch version, or our Western European version, my Dutch version, and that it's in this industry. In the firm where I'm active, because agriculture is different from steel, and it's in this particular firm. This is how we do things around here, and maybe even within corporate units, because sales has a different style from production. In sales, we do not do things like we do in production. Different style. Okay. So this is how I see the belief system of the people. In how it lives in people's minds.
And it corresponds to the classes you were mentioned at the beginning, right?
Not yet.
No?
Yeah, it does.
No.
It does. Hold on. So this is how I would, it's just like a very preliminary thing, the meme, and then what would a rule be in a rule-based system? So I'm trying to make the translation. I'm not going in. Not now. You can have. Okay, so let's experiment a little bit. First is a bit general, and then maybe we can be a bit more concrete. The firm is an autocratic system, is my statement, and so it has no principal. Principal is your boss. It has no boss. It's his own boss. Not even his own boss, because it itself cannot even say where it wants to go. But the current belief is that the shareholder is king. He's not. And the argument is that he is the one who puts his capital at risk. His money. He has additional extra money that he doesn't need, buys a share of the company, and that is at stake, because if the company goes bankrupt, he loses the money. And that is the argument for a shareholder to be seen as the king, and it is like that. So you know that it works like that. It's very important. We do that for shareholder. Okay. Now this is the reason that I'm keeping Wolfram alive. Units of equal sophistication. So it works like that a little bit, maybe for different reasons, but in a smaller circle, so in an industry sector, these firms are going to be toned in, adapted to each other, and it's very strong. So in my company, I had a few competitors, and I fairly well knew their prices because they were the same as my prices, because it took us as long to make some product as it will take them, and we had all the same suppliers. And so after a while, maybe there's a new incumbent and he has some special trick or a new machine or I don't know what, and the prices start to change, but after a while, it's all the same. So they all have the same value adding process, business processes, and the same result, and the same level of complexity, and hence the same level of sophistication, computational sophistication. Move on. Yeah, I had dreamed up this monetic entity as a joke from Leibniz, because that's really essentialist. So it's something, a monad is the super essence of something. And so maybe you remember that I said these things are interacting with the environment, and via their environment they receive back echoes of their own behavior and all that. So it's kind of individuation without ever having heard the term. I call them monetic as a joke. Now I've read Weaver's thesis. He calls it nomad. Funny enough, it's about the whole
Monad and nomad.
Because it's nomad reality. He says it changes, but if something outside changes, it's structurally coupled, and so it changes a little bit as well. And so the reality, as it's cognized, reality develops, but it can change a little bit all the time. So the environment changes, firm changes, reality changes. And so two firms are ever the same, or never does a firm remain the same. So it's a bit of a general conclusion as well. Autopoiesis is maintained, so it's operationally closed, so it's the irritating thing again. To change it means that you have to induce it to organize differently. But its potential is limited to what its organization autopoietically can accommodate. So in a natural way, as long as it keeps, as it's closed, it doesn't matter in what way it is closed, as long as it remains closed. The organization can change in that sense. So not in the short term, but in the long term it can. Structure of the firm can change as much as the organization is not. So if it's not too big, small steps it can change. Okay, so the system will violently resist change beyond its domain of interactions. So it damages the organization, unity, and identity. So it will resist that. So any change manager, and it's not written here, but it should be the last line, will tell you that it's, if he's honest, or she, that it's very difficult to change an organization. Because it is, if you turn your back, it just flips back right into the position where you left it, before your project. And everybody, that is the interesting thing, the people that you work with in your project, they will explain exactly how it needs to be done, why this is a good thing, and how they are doing it, and it's not happening. It's like a rubber band, it just goes back to where it was. And the people who are good work, they're not like cheating on you or trying to work around you. It's just very strong. It's a very. I blame it on the Memeplex, as always, and it's just well built, and you have to be very smart to make a change to it, so that it is it's a different configuration, but equally strong to hold. Alright, so here's my most concrete example, based on a general, autopoietic IDs. And that's an answer to your question and your question as well, about on which level. Autopoietic organization, Jensen Bakery, of the bakeries class of unities, autopoietic. So I've said that the organization, autopoietic organization, determines what kind of organization it is. So it's a bakery. This network of memes exists in every bakery. You can copy it from one to another.
This is interesting, because there's, sorry for interruption, but this is, like, autopoiesis of the class of bakeries is a completely different autopoiesis than the autopoiesis of the one bakery. Like you have, when you have this class, what makes it stable? the fact that people eat bread. What makes people eat bread? You know, like in general, you know, like at
Yeah.
a different level completely. You know, how like it's even, you know, chemical or biochemical. You know, the coupling of the bread and the human organism and the culture and the economy and everything that makes people repetitively want bread, right? But one bakery is a different thing. It's a neighborhood. It's people here, the prices, how you know your facade looks, and so on.
Exactly.
So,
And I've said, okay, how it's made. So I've kept it in the bakery a little bit. So these means both that people behave roughly is select ingredients, net the bread, bake the bread, sell it. When these memes are enacted, their expression forms a bakery. Okay. Outside of the
I think it's a good idea to describe a firm in this way as a kind of an operational way of this leads to that, this leads to that, that leads to this, and like that you kind of create a circle where you see that things are kind of recycled. And I think COT could make models like that.
Yeah.
We once made a model of a farm like that. I should be able to find it for you.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, because that's I like it, but I couldn't get it to work. So I like some, you know, even if it's a rough draft example, that would be useful. So behavior outside of their domain, so raw ingredients, not netted dough or not baked too long or too short, or the bread is not sold but handed out, that damages the organization, Jen's bakery existence, hence opportunities broke. And in addition, it takes a large effort to install a Memetic or to change it if the organization of it is changed. So what makes a bakery, it's very difficult to teach the people at Jensen's Bakery to make it a fishmonger, fish shop. They have no clue. They don't have the tools, they don't know how to use them, they don't know what the prices are, how you treat the fish, they don't know. So everything changes. So I believe that the organization of, in autopoietic sense, points at a concrete kind of organization, firm. Okay, so specific within all the bakers, the set of all the bakers, we have Jensen is specific because of its structure. It's how it's realized, and that is, for instance, the amount of salt. Particular bakery, but what I have, you know, even this outgoing is Jensen is known because they always have fresh flowers on the till. It's not, if they don't do that anymore, you know, the position in the neighborhood will change because people like that, but the alternative is too expensive, or I don't know what. A picture of Miss Jensen could be a good alternative to that. It will not touch the organization of the bakery. It's still a bakery. So I've tried to make that distinction between how it's expressed from the organization, how it's expressed by the. So it's kind of a minimum set of behavior and what is additional to it. So it makes Jensen a bakery other than any other. This is one of the last slides. People and socials can attract or repel. We've seen that. Life experience. Yeah, okay. The central point is the second one. So if a person is attracted to a social system, she accepts expressions of these means, particularly that social system, and is said to be included in it. So now you're part of the Roman Catholic Church all of a sudden.
It's probably because the means of that social system are kind of easily compatible or similar to the memes you already have.
Yeah.
So that you don't need to get many new memes to become part of that complex.
Kind of Brownian landscapes. Yeah, I like this idea of attraction and repulsion. Some things you don't even think about of, you know, ever wanting to be like ISIS.
Yeah.
And to be as far away as you can.
Yeah, there are memes that's why you need the inconsistency. There are memes that are so contradictory, or what we might call cognitive dissonance, that you really don't want to get anywhere near them.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to discuss that. Parts of the memes, yeah, okay, so now the the advice. If people are stuck with their company culture, the only thing is to fire people, because the software is in their heads, and that part of the software you need. If you want to be rid of it, the only way is to have people leaving. And to change the system by injecting new memes for training, that takes a large effort.
I see a problem here with your use of the term memes, because a meme by definition is something that can be easily transferred from one to the other. Well, if you imply here that if somebody leaves, he carries away part of the memeplex, that means that the memes have not really spread because the system, but they are really inside the head of that person. Which is not a problem if you interpret them as condition action rules, but that are not necessarily memetic in the sense that they don't easily transfer. A meme, for me, by definition, is a condition action rule that gets transferred from person to person. Well, in this case, you're kind of implying that some of them are very difficult to transfer. So,
if there are, because the new people, so there are 100 people in a firm, 20 leave, 20 new come in from competition, from competitors or elsewhere. So what you're saying is that given little time, these 20 will be as good as the 20 that just left, because they now have implemented the same complex in their
if the memes are easy to transfer as good memes should be, then it will happen like that. But if it's specialized knowledge, like this guy left, but he was the only one who knew what to do when that machine broke down.
Yeah, that's the typical narrative that you always get.
Yeah.
One thing that I've written about a little bit is that a company like Shell, nobody can know. Royal Dutch Shell, for instance, big corporate thing. And so everybody has a little bit of the memeplex in the mind. So you know how the gas plant works in Dubai, you know how the thing works in, I think they have one at the east coast of England. And you know some parts of that, and you have a fake idea how it compares to the other one, but you can only have that part. So I think if you people leave the firm and you select which ones carry a certain part of the memeplex that you don't like, that could be
By the way, that can also be modeled in COT if you have a so-called catalyst in the reaction. That means what I call an agent. That means a person who needs to be present for the reaction to take place. The person himself is not affected by the reaction, but without that person, the reaction doesn't take place. Like John plus broken machine gives John plus repaired machine. Take away John, and broken machine will never turn into repaired machine.
Maybe if I've told you this example of in the south of Holland, they do a lot of wheat is cannabis cultivation, but it's illegal. And the police originally started to make arrests at the top, so what they thought were the managers, and didn't make a difference because the managers were taken out of the game. But it's not so difficult to manage if there are managers at all. So it was no difference. So the growth was the same. And then they found out that the electricians, there's a lot of electricity involved, so they started to make arrests with the electricians. Every electrician had like 4 or 5 of these things under control, and they needed him to make the installations. So then all of a sudden the new installations stopped and the maintenance of the existing ones. And so that is an example of a catalyst. So if you have the electricians and they're prepared to do the work, then poof, you can have all these. That's it. That's more or less. So these are very general examples. So I think we have to be modest in our expectations of the contribution of firms to change the society. So if you want a greener society, more sustainable, maybe you should not look at firms as it currently stands. You should design laws and force them to do that. So the viability of change to a firm's business, we've discussed that. It's difficult to make a change. Expectations regarding the innovative power of firms. Firms are set to make innovations. They do process innovations, improve their own processes. And for the really new stuff, you have to go to universities and get it there, buy it, take the patent, and then bring it to the firm and exploit it. So they are machines for exploiting stuff, do it as efficiently as possible. Then there's a problem occurred when dealing with AGI. One of the articles of, at least one of the articles of, because it's a bigger intelligence than you are.
Well, it's all very hypothetical still, so.
It is, but I mean, some problems were discussed. You can feel. I think you sent me an article of Weaver about the impact of AGI on your, because you feel like a child whose father is explaining chess to him. You feel kind of powerless because everything in an AGI is faster than you can think and has more data than you can mobilize, and is probably physically stronger at some point than you are, so you feel dwarfed in every sense. It makes you feel uncomfortable.
The some people are also afraid, but they are very much exaggerating the ease of building an AGI. Specialized artificial intelligences are very efficient, but that's like all specialized techniques.
Yeah, like a robot arm.
Like a robot arm,
yeah.
or like a particular drug, or like a particular sensor. These are very good at doing certain things, but don't put them into a completely different problem domain because they don't know anymore what to do.
No,
People, because the specialized AI is so efficient, tend to immediately jump towards the general AI, but that remains difficult.
Yeah. So we're not there. But I think that if you consider how Google is treating you or us, it is dangerous a little bit. Because they are very smart already, and creating your bubble for you.
I remember what you meant. It was in the context of determinism. This paper about free will and determinism. That when you have like a more like a bigger cognitive system, which kind of incorporates you, it knows what you will do before you will do. You think you are free, and it's already computed, and in a sense, it's determining your
so
trajectory.
So it takes you a minute to think of something.
You think you are still free, and something else already knows you what you'll do.
That's typically the kind of thought experiment that analytic philosophers make, but very little to do with the real world.
Yeah. That's no.
But when you are arguing something we also argued in social systems programming, like this, the firms and social systems are cognitive systems. Like when you consider, because I understand this as kind of justification why it's a problem and why we need to think about firms differently. So that they are so powerful as cognitive systems that they basically like pre-format what we will do. And we don't have the choice, right? So we are in those stupid automatic loops of production.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, one example I wrote somewhere is that I read this term as co-evolve with an A, which is two things happening at the same time. And so if a company takes your data off you and they start analyzing that, and they have the brightest minds and the fastest computers and the best software to do that they can tell you things about yourself that you didn't know.
Yeah, that is no problem.
And it's not a problem.
Most people can do that.
Okay, that's also true. But then,
it's not that difficult. That does not mean that they can predict every move of you. It does not mean that you become intelligent.
No, but
the typical example is if you like these and these movies, then you will probably also like this movie. And I say, yeah, it's so I really like that.
How did he know this?
Well, it's not that difficult that people who like a particular type of movie that other people also like, that when there's other people also like a third movie that they will also like. It's not so
no,
mysterious or magical.
No, but it can. I mean, this is only the beginning, and now Google follows where you are based on your cell phone data. And so, if if you on a specific date, and now it can ask you if you're going there today as well. It's a bad example. I only know half the story, so leave it. But
No, but I mean that's machine learning or data mining. If you have enough data, you can find patterns in there, and using these patterns, you can make predictions which are more likely to be correct than incorrect.
yeah, but at this
But
point
that's not the same as being determined or being controlled. I mean, if you observe me a little bit, you can predict that I will leave the house at either 5 to the hour or 1 to the half hour, because that's when my trains are. Yeah, okay, but can you predict it on one particular day? I will necessarily take the train. Well, no, because I don't always take the same train.
no, but I know that. But if you're not leaving before we are going to drink beer,
You have to go.
to go. Oh, I'm taking too much of your time. Yeah, I don't know. Ciao.
Bye.
What I always found silly is that people are so afraid. We have had a discussion before about computers supposedly programming them and controlling them when they're already so programmed and so predictable because of the social system in which they participate. Most of the determinism and programming and controlling and predictability is because of the social system, it's not because of computers.
Yeah, but it goes beyond that, I'm sure, because news services, at this point, they tweak the news so that it maximizes their income.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, yes.
So it's not. Lumen says it's mass media that make reality.
Yeah, I mean,
because reality is biased.
These things are dangerous because you have what I call parasitic modes or psychological parasites. That is things that thrive on certain of your automatisms and instincts and impulses. And of course, if you can make money from it, somebody will find out what these impulses are. But in a sense, it has always existed.
Yeah.
Drugs and gambling and alcohol and cigarettes are also like that. And now you have new, more powerful means to do certain of these things, but you have to become aware of it, and as a government, you have to regulate it to make sure that it's not being abused. And yeah, it's not trivial because there are so many new things appearing, but in se, it's not a new problem, it has always existed.
What has not existed is that it is so quick and flexible and powerful. So as you can be recommended books, so you can be recommended your personalized newspaper.
Yeah.
This is dangerous.
Which is dangerous in some respects, which is positive in other respects. The point is, you wouldn't want people to just have a newspaper that only confirms their opinions. On the other hand, it's logical that somebody who is interested in gardening will read a gardening magazine, and somebody who's interested in horses will read a horses magazine.
But here you are making the key distinction that like the center or the choice maker and like the place from which the usage of technology is organizing is the user or the human, right? And if it's
but
if
the
it's
user does it on the basis of what's available. If I go to the corner shop and there are 2 gardening magazines available, I will buy one of those 2, even though there may be hundreds of gardening magazines in the world. I will be determined by my environment.
Yeah, but the same technology, like it is speaking about danger or neutrality of technology, the same technology can be used beautifully, but for human emancipation. And the same, if you speak, like about humans being so predictable already, so like combine those 2 systems together, like make technology like another extension of the social system, and we are, we are completely in a matrix.
What you really want is a system. Yeah. That challenges people to develop themselves, that means it does not just confirm their prejudices, but that challenges to go further. And that's why one of the nicest applications of all these techniques is the poem system or something similar that was explained to us, which is an educational system where on the basis of how well you scored in certain modules, the system recommends further learning modules for you to do.
Yeah.
And it will not recommend the ones that you already good on. It will recommend the one that you can't yet do, but that you might be able to do with a little bit of extra effort.
Yeah, so there's positive news as well. But still, if profit is involved, a lot is allowed.
Profit
that is
is
not in your benefit.
exactly, and that is a problem of the capitalist system.
Yeah.
And the capitalist system, you will use whatever technology there is to make gains, and these technologies now create new means of making profit that are not good.
At the same time, the same goes for the capitalist system. It's hugely beneficial. It's brought a lot, but maybe we should change our expectations of the outcomes of the belief in the market system.
We all know that the market system has very strong points and very weak points, and it's not a question of all or none, either market or no market, but we need a system that has some of the good points of the market, the invisible hands, the motivation of people, the flexibility, but not of the bad points, namely to make profit at the cost of anything else. And my proposal of the offer networks is one way to maybe look at it in a different way of keeping the flexibility but without having the negative side effects. It's not trivial to find an alternative, definitely not.
That one. Those two are the starting points, I think, for capitalism. It's humanism and it's utilitarianism. Humanism is that there's no price for humans. So you can kill the last 10 northern rhinos for a 96-year-old person with phase 4 cancer. There is no question asked. That's it. And obviously, there's a whole grey area for smaller stuff. You know, if it improves the lives of people better, you would also, 10,000 people, you would also kill those last 10 rhinos. There is no question about it. But to change that, you know, it's to maximize individual control over the world. So each person is priceless, so can have complete control in that sense. That is difficult to change because you can't do, if you don't do this, then you go back to a long time ago.
No, but utilitarianism has become to mean that it's utility in the economic sense, which typically means money or profit.
Stuff.
While the original meaning of utilitarianism in the philosophical fathers Bentham and Mill was the maximization of happiness. And my point is that happiness is not the same as economic wealth.
It has been replaced with stuff. The
monk in his Buddhist monastery may be much more happy than this billionaire who makes money as if it's nothing. But the capitalist system will not reward the Buddhist monk, but will reward the other one. So in the sense of utilitarianism, the Buddhist monk is getting more utility for much less effort than
but it's very strong, because about a year ago, these Buddhist monks, they were with their private jet.
I don't say all Buddhist monks are the prototypical example. Buddhist monks are necessarily the happiest people.
But this is really deep in almost everybody's mind, and so to be rid of this, to change this, is a big social system, and it is very robust for perturbations. So what has to happen to that? Let's make it a little bit smaller and try to change understand what a firm is first. And then, okay.
But I think you should be careful not to get sunk in these metaphysical discussions. I mean, that's Weaver's domain. Weaver is good at it, you are good at firms, so you better concentrate on the concrete cases of firms. and use of the metaphysics only insofar as it's necessary to explain the processes.
Yeah, I agree. It's for my own. It's a flaw of character. I have great difficulty to accept, because in economics it's standard practice that you start somewhere, in my opinion, in the middle of the story, because they say there is a firm, that's the starting point. Why is there a firm? There's
No,
nothing
but you
before
are
it.
right to ask these questions. You are right to ask these questions. But you don't need to adopt a whole metaphysical system like the Leuzefreud.
Yeah.
Because whichever metaphysical system you will adopt, it will explain something but not others.
Yeah.
There isn't as yet a universal
Yeah.
metaphysical system, and it will introduce all kinds of things that are complications in your case.
Yeah. Then it's more time to connect them than to do productive work in this direction. Because
I think Peter Bratton has understood it pretty well. I mean, he's also interested in the metaphysical ideas of action ontology and so on, but he uses it in a very pragmatic sense. I mean, he will make a few philosophical references, but then he applies it to specific situations in firms that he knows.
Yeah. Good. Okay, I'll take that home. Thank you for hearing me out. 2.5 hours. I owe you a beer or two if you want.
Yeah, I want.
Yeah.